Francis George, Francis Eugene George, born born January 16, 1937, and died on April 17, 2015, was an American cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church. He was the eighth Archbishop of Chicago from 1997 to 2014, and also served as Bishop of Yakima from 1990 to 1996, and Archbishop of Portland, Oregon, 1996 to 1997. A member of the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. George was created a cardinal by Pope John Paul II in 1998. He served as president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops from 2007 to 2010. On September 20th, 2014, Pope Francis accepted George's resignation and appointed Bishop Blaise J. Cupich of Spokane, Washington, to succeed him as Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Chicago. In this unusual circumstance, George was permitted to remain as the incumbent Archbishop until Cupich was installed to succeed him on November 18, 2014. George was initially diagnosed with cancer in 2006 and died from the disease in 2015. Early life and education. Francis George was born on January 16, 1937, in Chicago, Illinois, to Francis J. and Julia R. Nee McCarty George. He has an older sister, Margaret. He received his early education at the parochial school of St. Paschal Church in Chicago's Northwest Side. George contracted polio at age 13. Due to his disability, he was rejected by Archbishop Quigley Preparatory Seminary and instead enrolled at St. Henry Preparatory Seminary, Belleville, a high school seminary of the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. He joined the Missionary Oblates on August 14, 1957. He continued his studies at the Oblates Novitiate in Godfrey before entering Our Lady of the Snow Seminary in Pass Christian, Mississippi. George was then sent to study theology at the University of Ottawa in Canada. He made his solemn vows as a member of the Missionary Oblates on September 8, 1961. Priesthood. On December 21st, 1963, George was ordained to the priesthood by Bishop Raymond Hillinger at his home parish of St. Paschal Church. He received a Bachelor of Theology (BTH) degree from the University of Ottawa in 1964, followed by a Master of Arts degree in philosophy from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. in 1965. He then taught philosophy at Our Lady of the Snow Seminary in Pass Christian 1964 to 69, Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana 1968, and Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska 1969 to 1973. During his teaching assignments, George earned a Doctor of Philosophy degree in American philosophy from Tulane University in 1970 and a Master of Arts in Theology from the University of Ottawa in 1971. He served as a provincial superior of the Midwestern province for the Missionary Oblates in St. Paul, Minnesota, from 1973 until 1974, when he became Vicar General of his religious order. Based in Rome, he served as Vicar General for 12 years. He obtained a Doctor of Sacred Theology degree from the Pontifical Urbaniana University in 1988, with a thesis entitled Inculturation and Communion. George returned to the United States, where he served as a coordinator of the Circle of Fellows at the Center for the Study of Faith and Culture in Cambridge, Massachusetts, 1987 to 90. Early episcopacy. On July 10, 1990, George was appointed the fifth Bishop of Yakima in Washington by Pope John Paul II. He received his episcopal consecration on the following September 21st from Archbishop Agostino Caciavillane, with Bishops Roger Schweitz, OMI, and William S. Skylstad serving as co-consecrators at Holy Family Church in Yakima. He took as his episcopal motto, Christo Gloria in Ecclesia, to Christ be glory in the Church. George served the diocese of Yakima for 5.5 years. As a member of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops (USCCB), he served as chair of the Commission for Bishops and Scholars, 1992 to 1994, and as consultant to the Committees on Evangelization, 1991 to 93, Hispanic Affairs, 1994 to 97, and Science and Values, 1994 to 97. He was an Episcopal advisor to the Cursillo Movement Region 12 from 1990 to 1997 and Episcopal Moderator of the National Catholic Office for Persons with Disabilities from 1990 to 2008. He was a papal appointee to the 1994 World Synod of Bishops on Consecrated Life and attended the Ninth Ordinary Assembly of the Synod of Bishops in Vatican City in October 1994. On April 30th, 1996, George was appointed the ninth Archbishop of Portland in Oregon. He was installed on the following May 27 at St. Mary's Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. During his brief tenure, he led the Archdiocese response to a tape recording by the Lane County Jail of an inmate's sacramental confession. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals later ruled that the tape recording was an unconstitutional and illegal act. Archbishop of Chicago. Less than a year later, on April 8, 1997, Pope John Paul II appointed George VIII Archbishop of Chicago to fill a vacancy left by the death of Cardinal Joseph Bernardin on November 14th, 1996. He was the first native Chicagoan to assume the office. On May 7th, after his appointment, the Apostolic Pronuncio Agostino Cassiavillane installed Archbishop George as Archbishop of Chicago in Holy Name Cathedral. On January 18, 1998, Pope John Paul II announced Archbishop George's elevation to the College of Cardinals with the title of Cardinal Priest of San Bartolomeo Alisola, which occurred at the consistory at the Vatican on February 21st. George was one of the 2005 cardinal electors who participated in the 2005 papal conclave, which selected Pope Benedict XVI, and one of the 2013 cardinal electors in the papal conclave of 2013 that selected Pope Francis. George published a locally well-read column bi-monthly in the Chicago Archdiocesan newspaper, of which he, while Archbishop, was the publisher. The Catholic New World called the Cardinal's Column. He was also the publisher of the Archdiocese of Chicago's Hispanic newspaper, Chicago Católico. George has published at least two pastoral letters. The first, Becoming an Evangelizing People, was released on November 21st, 1997. The second was a major discourse on the sinful and destructive nature of racism, Dwell in My Love, released on April 4th, 2001. George was the author of three books. The first, The Difference God Makes, A Catholic Vision of Faith, Communion, and Culture, was published in October 2009 by Crossroad Publishing Company. It is a collection of essays exploring our relationship with God, the responsibility of communion, and the transformation of culture. The second, God in Action, How Faith in God Can Address the Challenges of the World, was published in May 2011 by Doubleday Religion. In this collection of essays, he reflects on the significance of religious faith in the public sphere and underscores the unique contributions of religion to the common good. His final book, A Godly Humanism, Clarifying the Hope That Lies Within, published by CUA Press, was completed just 9 days before his death in 2015. It offers an account of the Catholic intellectual life while enunciating a vision of the Church as a communion built around the relationship of God to human beings and of human beings to one another. George was also known for continuing the work of his predecessor, Cardinal Bernardin, regarding young people in the Church, specifically by addressing the Archdiocese annual Theology on Tap gathering in 1997. In his invitation to the event, he wrote, You are very important members of the Church. Your energy, talent, and faith will give me much help as together we build up our local church to be a vital presence in the Chicago area. Together we can continue the mission of Jesus Christ to bring the gospel of love, forgiveness, and holiness to all the places where we live and encounter others. George was a member of the Board of Trustees of the Catholic University of America and a member of the Order of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. In March 2009, George met with newly elected U.S. President Barack Obama. In the fall of 2010, he finished his 3-year presidency of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Interfaith relations. In 2007, George asked Jews to reconsider descriptions of Jesus in the Talmud as a bastard in exchange for a softening of traditional Catholic prayers calling for Jews to be converted to Christianity. In 2009, he condemned negationist declarations made by Bishop Richard Williamson, a member of the Society of St. Pius X. In 2010, George spoke at Brigham Young University about the continued need for Catholics and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints, nicknamed Mormons, to stand together to protect religious freedom. In recent years, Catholics and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints have stood more frequently side by side in the public square to defend human life and dignity. George said he also praised the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints for its efforts alongside the Catholic Church to combat poverty and pornography and the need to define marriage as between one man and one woman. Later in 2010, George further outlined the degree to which he believed religious freedoms in the United States and other Western societies were endangered. In a speech to a group of priests, he said, "I expect to die in bed. My successor will die in prison, and his successor will die a martyr in the public square. His successor will pick up the shards of a ruined society and slowly help rebuild civilization, as the Church has done so often in human history." The quote was originally published online without the second sentence. In a 2014 interview, George said, "I didn't think there was any press there when I said it. I was talking to a couple of troubled priests who are worried about the secularization of our culture. I was telling them they should take the long view, step back, and renew their confidence in the providence of God. I was saying that even if the worst possible case scenario happens, we'll be okay. It was a mental game in the Kantian sense. Let's imagine the worst thing that could happen. Instead of wringing your hands, let's imagine the worst possible scenario and then figure out what our role might be." Comments on homosexuality. When a new route was proposed for the 2012 annual Chicago Pride Parade that would take it past the Catholic Church, George told an interviewer, "You don't want the gay liberation movement to morph into something like the Ku Klux Klan, demonstrating in the streets against Catholicism." In response, LGBT advocates in Chicago called for George's resignation, but George said when the pastor's request for reconsideration of the plans was ignored, the organizers invited an obvious comparison to other groups who have historically attempted to stifle the religious freedom of the Catholic Church. 2 weeks later, George apologized. "This has evidently wounded a good number of people. I have family members myself who are gay and lesbian, so it's part of our lives, so I'm sorry for the hurt." He said he was speaking out of fear that I have for the church's liberty, and I was reaching for an analogy which was very inappropriate. Sometimes fear is a bad motivation. LGBT rights advocates accepted his apology. On January 1st, 2013, in a pastoral letter to the Archdiocese, George stated that the passage of a same sex marriage legislation in Illinois, which appeared imminent, would be acting against the common good of society. The proposed legislation will have long term consequences because laws teach. They tell us what is socially acceptable and what is not, and most people conform to the dictates of their respective society, at least in the short run. In September 2014, in George's column in the Archdiocesan newspaper, he wrote that the American government and society were now approving sexual relationships so at odds with Roman Catholic belief that the Church's teaching on these issues is now evidence of intolerance for what the civil law upholds and even imposes, and that those who do not conform to the official religion, we are warned, place their citizenship in danger. He also cited the requirements of the Affordable Care Act. He wrote that it already means in some states that those who run businesses must conform their activities to the official religion or be fined, as Christians and Jews are fined for their religion in countries governed by Sharia law. Later in September 2014, George met with a gay music director of a Catholic parish who had been fired after announcing his intention to marry his partner. The man said of the meeting, "I was just again grateful for the opportunity to meet him, for him to know me, for him to hear my story. I think the overall tone was again pastoral." Extra, this will be part one.